Okay, so here I am. I'm after a couple of backfire starts on the RV. I've said, you know what, I was going to pull this carburetor off before. Definitely going to do it now, especially since my neighbor across the way there decided to call the police on me. Had a wonderful conversation with not one but two police officers and two different cruisers. I'm suspecting that the reason why there were two separate cruisers is because my wonderful neighbor, she decided to claim I was firing off some firearms on, in the city limits, which is against the law. So, obviously if somebody tells you they're firing off, weapons, they're not going to just, have one police officer show up. They'll have another one as backup, just in case, something goes wrong. So, based on my experience, working with law enforcement, that's how they treated it, although she pretended to act like she didn't know what it was. So she made claims that I was firing a firearm off, which, of course, knowing a lot of the law enforcement in town, they understood that that was not true, and they understood I was just trying to start my RV. So what I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to pull my carburetor off. I'm going to be sending it down to a very trusted person I know down in Daytona, Florida, Bill's Discount Carburetor. I will put a link in my video. I'm going to try to put a link in my video. Hopefully that'll work. And I will give you the contact information. He does it for about $200. This is a Rochester Quadrajet. He will take it, completely rebuild it, get it all 100% like it was brand new, and I'm sure once I slap it back on here, it will run, start up with a flick of the key, and it will run great, and it will not run like the pig that it ran on my trip to Florida and back on several occasions. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start taking it apart. Stay tuned. Okay, I've got the air cleaner housing off with all its wonderful hose attachments, the PVC stuff, blah blah blah. There's a sensor over here. There's also underneath, there's a couple of hose connections you can see here. Ooh, stuff rolled around. Hold on. I lost it. Where'd it go? Okay, well, stuff rolled out and onto the container there, one of these pieces here. I'll get those all back. I've had this cleaned off before, but there is a lot of dirt in here. I noticed there's just like tons of crud in here, which, wow, you don't realize how much crap gets sucked into the intake. And this has already got its own sort of, meshed intake built in. And the filter goes around the outside of it. And you'd think, okay, you got a filter with this thing, but like here's the actual air filter which goes around the outside of it. So I've got like 2 layers of protection, and goodness knows you probably need it, considering little disturbed by that. But anyways, we're in here. I've got my phone with the light here so I can at least show you. So this sucker has been, you can see here, there's some residual fuel around the around this here, around the gasket up here. There's all sorts of kind of stuff here that I'm going to be looking at, and this does look like it has an electric choke on it right there, although I've had to press the gas pedal to set that when I've done it, which is a little surprising. So I'm going to take this off, going to disconnect all the linkages. Hopefully going to try to do so in a way that you can see what's going on. So these 2 bolts back here, there's this one, and then on the top there's this one and this one over here, which those are the main bolts that hold the carburetor down. There's a lot of there's a fuel line here, as you can see, coming off the front here. That is, that's that right there. That's got to be undone. So got to disconnect that. There's an electrical connection. There's a little 12-volt electrical connection here. Oh, did I turn off my flashlight? Come on, man. I'm going to turn my little flashlight off. turn it back on. There we go. So there is a 12-volt connection right there for the choke, which, I mean, that looks like an electric choke, but I've always had to like press the gas pedal, which I don't understand. If I have an electric choke, I don't know why I have to push the gas pedal down to start the engine, but hey, that probably will be something else I'll have to deal with. So I've got all these little things here I've got to like disconnect, and probably here it's raining out. As you can see here, it's raining today. Everything's dripping off the edges here. Hopefully not draining into my RV. Sorry for the small diversion, but I did drill a bunch of holes in my window channel to make sure the crud was not dripping into the RV. That was a big thing. It's doing pretty well so far. I do have a replacement microwave to deal with the one that blew up due to the generator restart. And so anyways, so I'm going to start working on this and getting the connections off. I don't know how I'm going to get my phone to set the way it should set. Maybe I'll do this. It's kind of like a, I don't know what I'm going to do here. It's kind of weird. Hold on. I'm going to try to figure out a way of resting my phone so it actually shines light on the carburetor. There we go. So for the most part. So I'm going to get in here. I'm going to take these connections off. Again, it's the these two bolts down here. I'm going to take those off. I'm going to get the linkages off over here for the throttle. That's going to be interesting. There's a secondary throttle linkage back here. As you can see here when I'm pulling it. I just shot a bunch of gas in it. And actually you can see the gas pedal moving. Woo! See that? Lines. There's a vacuum line down here. Gonna move my phone around so you can see it. That's a disconnected vacuum line from the actual air cleaner. There's one right down there. And I'm just gonna start, you know, pulling this stuff off to try to get a better idea of where I'm going with everything. I just wish it was a really cool place to be able to, maybe I can plunk the phone down, the phone like in here somewhere. Maybe I could do that. Okay, all right, hold on. Okay, so I've got pretty much all the vacuum hoses off it. I've got this one off. I've got the linkages disconnected. There's two of them here, and I've got the little bits over here, along with an additional little clip here. So that's the one that was on the one. There's the circlip and the cotter pin. There you go. So I've gotten all the vacuum lines off the front end here. You can see there's one there. There's this one I'm working on that has one of those great, wonderful clamp clips, which I managed to move around. I had to go run out and get a needle nose plier because I couldn't do it. There's this guy back here. As you can see, there's this one here. I pulled him off as well. So he's off. And I got this vacuum line down here that's disconnected, although it doesn't look disconnected, it is. So I've got I've got the wire for the ignition one here. That's disconnected off of the choke. So really, other than this, where the fuel line comes in, and I've got a 5/8 wrench for that. So I've got my 5/8 wrench for that, which is here. Yay! Crescent wrench won't work. I'm going to disconnect this bad boy. I'm going to try to disconnect this bad boy. It's kind of short clearance because of all this other stuff in here, like the air pump and all this other garbage that's in the way. I can't really get a wrench in there that effectively, but I'm going to do it. Gonna do it. Gonna do a little short turns here, and you can see here. Oh yeah. So there's that wonderful other nut, 3/4 inch nut, which people tell me about, saying, hey, if you don't have something to stop that from moving, you can't get this one off. And I'm like, oh yeah, And that's a hard line, by the way. That is not a that's not a rubber line. That is a hard line, copper line going in there. So I'm going to have to take a 3/4 inch wrench, or hopefully the crescent wrench, and be able to stick it on there and make that happen. Okay, so I got that fuel line disconnected. Again, I'm going to have to use the phone assist with the flashlight to show you what's going on there. So I got that disconnected. I use a 3/4 inch crescent wrench to hold onto the bigger nut and got the fuel line disconnected. So we're in good shape there. There we go. So it's good. It's pulled out there. I had to disconnect the one vacuum line that's actually on the carburetor in order to get a wrench around that bigger nut. So what I'm doing now, as you can see here, I'll do that there. There we go. I am taking a 1/2 inch socket, which of course is not ratcheting too well. It is what it is. And I'm loosening up all the nuts here, which didn't take much to do. And I've got ones up here on this one. These are not on very tight, I'll tell you right now. I'm literally just spinning them off with the ratchet, which is kind of surprising, considering I can literally take these out. I'm going to use my left hand on this one. Look at that. I just, like a little 1/4 turn, and it popped right off. Thought they'd be torqued down a little bit. There we go. There's that one. Using my right hand for this one. This one's a little tighter. Might have to take a couple more. It's a little snug, but I'm going to just do this with it. Get it loosened up. As you can hear, there's no ratchet sound because it's not enough to do that. This is up now too, and this is, again, these are all loose. Got this bracket back here on the back of these Quadrajets. This is a fairly short bolt. I'm going to put that over there, and I'm going to take this one over here. I'm going to take that one out by hand pretty readily. As I said, I've got all the linkages pulled off, so I've got that bolt over there. This is the back bracket which holds the linkages, as you can see here. Yep, so that's out of the way. I've got my vacuum lines off, and the carburetor is loose. Don't know if it's 100% off or not, because it's probably that fuel line up there. Here we go. Sorry for the darkness. Just trying to do what I can here with this, and I should be able to pull my carburetor between all the other BS that's on. Oh, look, there's another vacuum line I forgot right here, which should have come off the first time, but wow, that's pretty stubborn. And I need a screwdriver for that one. Pull that off. There we go. And that one's off as well. And so I should be able to lift this carburetor off of here. Of course, I've got that one last remaining clamped line here. There it is there. I'm going to pull that off, and I'm going to pull the whole carburetor out. You can see here. I'll stay tuned. Running a little low on battery, so I'm going to come back in a second here. Hold on. Okay, so I got the managed to get the carburetor out. As you can see, it's a spread bore, and what that means is the I'll just put my phone kind of in the place here like that. These two smaller, these are the smaller, the primary carbs, and this is the secondary. So you've got the larger jets here, and so she's looking really nice, really clean. This gasket, not so much. Definitely an original gasket. Pretty crispy. Looking forward to. So we got all these vacuum line. That's the fuel line here. See the hard line that comes in. Another vacuum line. This is a vacuum line. I'm going to leave these all here, but I'm going to clean them up. There's this vacuum line here. You've got another vacuum line here. It's a lot of vacuum lines. Another vacuum line here. I mean, there's a bunch here that are connected to this carburetor. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up. I am going to cover this up so that way there's no risk of stuff falling down into the carburetor, into the engine itself. Just find it interesting that there's these, you can see these here, and these raised ridges that are cast into the manifold. Kind of wondering if that's a way to kind of like, it's kind of like a guide vein to bring fuel and air into the cylinders themselves. Thought that was always kind of an interesting thing. But anyway, so if you were wondering, okay, pulled it off. So where's the carburetor? There's the carburetor. It's pretty, I was surprised it's kind of heavy. I mean, this is heavier than the other Rochester I've got in the shop right now. This has got a lot of stuff on it. I mean, this thing probably weighs twice as much as the 1969, 1970 Rochester quad that I have. So I'm going to pack this up, get this to Bill's carburetor, discount carburetor down in Daytona, and let him mess with it, and hopefully he can get it all rebuilt. Going to pull my bolts out. Definitely see a lot of fuel leakage around the top of the carb. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's just spilled out. I can see there's a lot of residue, so who knows. Hopefully we'll get some resolution here, and I'm going to show you something else. Whoa, as I spill all the gas out all over the countertop, because you know it's not totally empty just yet. So let me pull that stuff over to the side before I start a fire or something with the batteries. Goodness knows we don't want that to happen. So yeah, so I'm tipping this thing, and of course the float bowls are draining out. I've got the original. These are sealed. The plugs are sealed on this thing. So I'm showing it to you. I'm going to come down here a little bit. These are just kind of like the idle plugs down here and here. They're totally sealed. They've not been touched since this thing has been brought from the factory. So kind of interesting to see that. You know, here's the bottom of the carb. It's in pretty good shape. But again, it's not been pulled off this engine since it's been out of the Chevy factory, GM factory in Detroit in 1986. So it's been a few years. So hopefully Bill can do his magic with doing some rebuilding on this. And I'll wind up with a carb in my engine that will do magic, and it won't run like a pig anymore. Stay tuned.